Story title: What She Didn't Say. Chapter 1. Small Cracks. Rachel woke up before the alarm. The soft glow of 6:12 a.m. blinked on the clock, but she was already staring at the ceiling. Her husband, Eric, lay beside her, snoring softly, same as he had every morning for the past 11 years. She didn't move. She just listened. To the snoring. To the silence underneath it. To the low hum of dissatisfaction she couldn't explain. Their life on paper was stable. Comfortable even. A modest but beautiful 2-story home in the suburbs of Indianapolis. 2 kids. Ella, 9, and Lucas, 6. A Labrador named Max who shed all over the couch. Eric worked in IT for a local logistics company. Rachel had quit her job as a paralegal after Lucas was born, now working part-time from home doing billing for a dentist office. They weren't struggling. They weren't fighting. They just weren't much of anything lately. She got out of bed quietly and padded downstairs. The kitchen was dim but familiar. She started coffee, fed the dog, and stared out the window at the neighbor's leafless tree. She used to talk to Eric every morning. Now it was just logistics. School drop-offs, dinner plans, bills. That morning, Eric came down in his usual blue dress shirt. He kissed her cheek. "Morning," he said, sipping from the mug she'd already filled for him. "Morning," she replied. Neither asked how the other slept. Neither said, "I love you." It wasn't anger. It wasn't distance, not yet. It was something quieter. Disconnection, drip by drip. Later that day, while Lucas napped and her inbox sat half full with insurance questions, Rachel's phone buzzed. A message from an old friend. Jason, from college. Random question. "Do you still live near Indy? I might be coming up for a conference next week." She hadn't talked to Jason in years. Not since he'd moved to Denver. Not since they'd both settled into separate lives. She smiled without meaning to. Would be great to catch up, coffee or something. That night, Eric fell asleep watching basketball. Rachel sat at the edge of the bed and stared at her phone. Jason had replied, "Thursday work for you? I land in the afternoon." She didn't mention it to Eric. Not because she was hiding something, but because it didn't seem important. Chapter 2. Just coffee. Rachel told Eric she had errands Thursday afternoon, which wasn't a lie. She did need to stop by Target for toilet paper and juice boxes. She just didn't mention the part where she was also driving downtown to meet Jason at a corner cafe 2 blocks from the convention center. She wore jeans, a green sweater she hadn't touched in months, and mascara. Not much, just enough to feel awake. She checked herself in the car mirror before going inside and laughed at how teenage it felt. Not because she had anything to hide. This was just an old friend after all. But because something in her stomach felt too alive for an average Thursday. Jason looked the same. A little more gray in his stubble, a little more tired around the eyes, but he still had that casual confidence that had drawn people to him in college. He stood when she walked in and hugged her tight, familiar and warm. She let herself melt into the comfort of it for just a second too long. "You look great, Rach," he said as they sat down. "Seriously? It's been, 10 years? 12, she said, smiling. "But who's counting?" They talked for an hour over coffee. The kind of conversation that skipped small talk and slipped into the old rhythm. Sarcastic jokes, shared memories, questions about life, kids, work, exhaustion, and how adulthood wasn't quite what anyone expected. He told her he'd never married. Dated off and on. Said work kept him too busy. She joked that 2 kids had made her permanently tired, and he laughed and said, "You were always the steady one." I'm not surprised. But she didn't feel steady. Not anymore. At one point Jason leaned in, eyes low. "You happy?" The question hit harder than it should have. She opened her mouth, paused, then said, "Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah." But she didn't look him in the eye when she said it. He didn't press her. Just nodded and changed the subject. Later, as they walked outside, the wind picking up, Jason asked if she wanted to grab a drink sometime before he left town. Not tonight, he had a dinner with colleagues, but maybe tomorrow. She hesitated for a moment too long. "Rachel," he said gently, "I'm not trying to cross a line. It's just nice talking to someone who remembers who I was before everything got complicated. That sentence stuck with her. 'Cause that's how she felt too. Like no one in her life remembered her before she became wife, mother, scheduler, grocery buyer, problem solver. Jason remembered the girl who danced barefoot at house parties and stayed up till 2 a.m. talking about books she never finished reading. She nodded. Okay. Tomorrow. He smiled. Text me. When she got back in the car, she didn't start it right away. She just sat with her hands on the wheel and stared at the dashboard. It was just coffee. And tomorrow it would be just a drink. So why did she already feel like she was lying? Chapter 3. The space between words. The next evening, Rachel told Eric she was going to meet an old friend for a drink. She kept her voice light, casual, even smiled when she said it. He didn't ask who the friend was. He barely looked up from the laptop. Cool, he said. Tell them I said hey. She waited for a question. For curiosity. For anything that might indicate the man sitting across from her still saw her as more than a fixture in the house. But he just kept typing. She left early and took the long way downtown. The roads blurred past, the car filled with the kind of tension that lived in her stomach now. Guilt and adrenaline doing a tightrope act. Jason picked the bar. It wasn't romantic. A small wood-paneled place tucked on a quiet corner. More bourbon than wine, more jazz than pop. It was deliberate, careful. Just like her. When she walked in, he was already there, sipping something amber-colored, scrolling on his phone. He stood when he saw her, smiled. That same relaxed smile that made her forget what hour it was. You look. He paused, gave a small shrug. Even better than yesterday. She laughed, nervous. Flattery on day 2. What's next, flowers? Jason raised an eyebrow. I could do flowers. Want flowers? No, she said too quickly. I mean no, I'm fine. They ordered drinks. 1 turned into 2. Then 3. They talked about the usual at first, work, politics, movies. But by the second round, the walls began to thin. Jason asked her what she missed most about her old life. She said freedom without even thinking. He nodded. Told her he missed having someone who knew him without having to explain everything. She asked him if he ever thought about settling down. He said he didn't trust himself not to screw it up. That's honest, she said. It's also lonely, he replied. There was a beat of silence after that. Not awkward. Just honest. A space between 2 people who knew exactly what they were doing, even if they hadn't done it yet. Jason leaned forward. Can I ask you something? She nodded. When was the last time someone looked at you like they really saw you? Rachel's throat tightened. She opened her mouth to answer, but nothing came out. She looked down at her drink. Stirred the ice with her straw. It's been a while, she finally said. Jason didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He reached across the table and gently, carefully, touched her hand. Not a grab. Not a pull. Just a hand resting on hers, like a light switch waiting to be flipped. She didn't pull away. They stayed like that for a moment that felt longer than it should have. Then Rachel stood. I should go, she said quietly. Jason nodded, let go of her hand and stood too. He didn't ask her to stay. But he did walk her to her car. When they got there, she unlocked it but didn't get in. The parking lot was mostly empty. The city lights buzzed above them. She turned toward him. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were cold. And before she could stop herself, she said, You make it really hard to remember why I'm not supposed to do this. Jason stepped closer slowly. Gave her room to leave. Gave her the chance to walk away. But she didn't. When he kissed her, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't hungry or desperate. It was slow. Intentional. The kind of kiss that wasn't about sex. It was about something else entirely. Being wanted. Being seen. Being alive. When they finally pulled apart, she touched her lips like they weren't her own. I can't, she whispered. I know, he said. But you already did. She didn't cry. Not yet. She just got in the car and drove home with the taste of him still on her mouth and the sound of her own heartbeat drowning out everything else. When she got home, the lights were off downstairs. Eric was already in bed. She climbed into the sheets like a thief, curled her body away from him. He didn't move. She stared at the wall, wide awake, a single sentence echoing through her mind. You already did. Chapter 4. The Hollow Room. Rachel woke up feeling like her body wasn't her own, like her skin didn't fit quite right. She lay in bed beside Eric as the first gray light crept through the window. He was snoring gently, the rise and fall of his back steady beneath the covers. For a moment she watched him, not with affection, not with bitterness, just observation. She wondered if he could feel it too, the quiet shift in the air between them, the change she brought home in her bloodstream. Her phone buzzed once on the nightstand. Message. She didn't have to look to know it was Jason. She didn't read it. Downstairs she made breakfast in silence. Eggs, toast, fruit for the kids. Max followed her like always, nails tapping on the tile. Ella came down rubbing her eyes. Lucas trailed after her, asking about juice and cartoons. Eric kissed her on the head as he passed through the kitchen, briefcase in hand. Have that meeting at 10, he said. Don't forget to email the school about the field trip. Got it, she said with a smile. The kind of smile she'd learned to fake without effort. By the time she dropped off the kids and returned home, the house felt too quiet. The dishwasher hummed in the background. Laundry waited in the hallway. There were 3 new emails from the dentist office and 1 voicemail from her mother asking if they were still coming for Thanksgiving. Rachel sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, staring at Jason's message. Last night was something. I know you're probably spinning. Just wanted to say I meant every word. I'm here. No pressure. Just honesty. She read it 5 times. Then she deleted it. Not because it meant nothing. 'Cause it meant too much. She didn't message him back. Not yet. But that didn't stop her from thinking about the way his lips had felt on hers. Or the way his voice dropped when he said her name. It wasn't about lust, not entirely. It was about how she felt around him, like she mattered in a way that didn't have to be earned or explained. Like she wasn't just someone's wife, someone's mother. She was still Rachel. That version of her had been missing for years. That night, Eric sat beside her on the couch while a sitcom played in the background. He was scrolling through emails on his phone. She watched the side of his face in the glow of the screen. His jawline softer now. The wrinkle above his eyebrow he got when reading something frustrating. The quiet calm he carried into every room. She used to love that calm. Now it felt like fog. Do you ever think about us? She asked suddenly. He looked up. What do you mean? Just how we used to be. When we were younger. Before the house, the kids, the routines. He gave a small smile. Yeah, sure. I think about it. And, she pressed. Eric shrugged. We're older now. Life's busy. But we're okay, aren't we? Rachel didn't answer. He reached over and rubbed her shoulder. I know we've been off lately. But you know I love you, right? She nodded slowly, eyes on the screen. A couple laughed in a diner. The laugh track clapped. I know, she whispered. He leaned over and kissed her temple, then stood up. I'm gonna head to bed. You coming? In a bit. He walked up the stairs. She sat on the couch and stared at the black screen of the television after it shut off. Her own reflection looked back at her. Tired eyes, blank expression. She picked up her phone. Opened Jason's number. Typed. I can't stop thinking about you. I don't know what I'm doing. She hovered her thumb over the send button for a full minute. Then she hit delete. Typed instead. Can we talk tomorrow? She pressed send. Then turned off the lamp and sat in the dark. The next day, while Eric was at work and the kids were in school, Rachel met Jason at a park on the edge of the city. They sat in his car, parked beneath a tree that hadn't yet shed all its leaves. The windows fogged from their breath, but they didn't touch. I told myself it wouldn't happen, she said, staring out the windshield. I'm not this person. People like to believe that bad choices only belong to bad people, Jason said quietly. But it's not that simple. She looked at him. This wasn't a mistake. That would make it easier. It was a choice. A real one. Then why are you here? She took a deep breath. Because I don't know if I want to undo it. Or disappear into it. Jason didn't smile. Didn't joke. He just looked at her like he saw everything. You're not happy, Rachel. You haven't been for a long time. She shook her head. But he's a good man. He doesn't deserve this. Jason reached over, took her hand. Neither do you. You don't deserve to keep pretending. Her phone buzzed. A text from Eric. Do we have milk? I think I forgot to grab some yesterday. She looked at the screen for a long time. And then she cried. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tears sliding quietly down her cheeks as she sat in a fogged-up car with a man who wasn't her husband, in a life that no longer fit. Jason held her hand. Didn't say a word. The hardest part wasn't the guilt. It was realizing she wasn't ready to stop. Chapter 5. 2 lives, 1 lie. By the time Halloween rolled around, Rachel was living in 2 timelines. There was the version of her that existed at home, helping Lucas with his ghost costume, sewing Ella's witch hat back together, carving pumpkins with Eric in the kitchen while pretending everything was normal. There were photos of them smiling on the porch, plastic pumpkins glowing behind them, and Max with a goofy bat headband strapped to his ears. And then there was the version of her no one saw. The one who met Jason every other Tuesday afternoon in the parking lot behind a closed-down bookstore on the east side of town. The one who spent hours talking to him about everything she couldn't say out loud to anyone else. How she felt invisible, how she didn't know what she wanted, how it felt like she was drowning in a perfectly calm life. The one who kissed him in the passenger seat. Who whispered things she didn't even know she felt until they were already said. They hadn't slept together. Not yet. But they'd come close. So close it left her shaking. And it wasn't the sex she feared. It was what came after. Questions. The line she could never uncross. One rainy afternoon, Rachel stood in the kitchen staring at the calendar on the wall. November was coming fast. Eric's birthday was next week. Then Thanksgiving. Then Christmas. The whole season of togetherness loomed like a test she hadn't studied for. Eric walked in behind her. Hey, he said. I was thinking maybe we should do something for my birthday this year. Just the 2 of us. Remember that steakhouse we went to in Bloomington? Could be nice. Rachel turned to him, surprised. You never care about your birthday, she said. Yeah, well. He scratched the back of his neck. I don't know. I feel like we've been off. Thought maybe it'd be good for us. She felt the guilt rise like heat under her skin. Her throat tightened. Sure, she said. I'll make a reservation. He smiled at her. Really smiled. And something inside her cracked. Not in a tragic romantic way. In a sickening one. Because for that moment she saw him. Not just as her husband but as a man who was trying. Who maybe knew more than he let on. The next day, Jason texted. I keep thinking about you. I know this is complicated, but can we talk? Really talk? Rachel stared at the message while folding laundry. She was sorting socks, matching tiny blue ones for Lucas and floral ones for Ella, and her hands were moving like they always had, but her brain was somewhere else. She messaged back. Tomorrow, noon. You pick the place. When she met him, it was pouring. The kind of rain that blurred the windshield and made everything feel more private. They sat in the back booth of a diner out by the train tracks. It smelled like coffee and old linoleum, and no one looked at them twice. Jason looked tired. Less cocky. More real. I don't want to be the guy who ruins your marriage, he said quietly. Rachel stirred her coffee. You're not. It was broken before you. He looked her dead in the eye. Then why are you still in it? She didn't answer. Not because she didn't know, but because the answer wasn't simple. Because of the kids. Because of the mortgage. Because of the holidays and her in-laws and the fact that Eric still kissed her on the forehead every morning and trusted her completely. Because walking away from a life, even a broken one, was harder than anyone wanted to admit. Because love didn't just vanish, morph, twisted. It lingered in ways that didn't make sense. I still care about him, she said. Jason nodded. I know. That's what makes this so hard. She looked at him then. Really looked. At the man who saw her in a way Eric hadn't in years. The man who remembered things about her she'd forgotten. How she used to keep a notebook of quotes in college. How she hated silence but couldn't sleep with noise. I don't want this to be an affair, she said. I don't want to sneak around forever. Then don't, Jason said. Come clean. Make a choice. She looked away. It's not that easy. I know, he said. But it has to be honest. Eventually. They didn't kiss that day. They just sat across from each other, both knowing they were nearing a cliff and neither ready to jump or turn back. Home things felt tenser. Eric was more present, oddly enough. He asked her about her day. He brought home flowers one night randomly. She found him watching her more closely, at the dinner table on the couch when she was brushing her hair in the mirror. Like he was trying to figure out what had changed but couldn't put his finger on it. One night, after the kids were in bed, they lay in silence for a while before he said, "Are you happy?" The question came out of nowhere. Rachel turned to him, startled. What? Just, are you happy? With us? With your life? She wanted to say yes. God, she wanted to say it. To make it true. But she didn't lie. She hesitated. I don't know. Eric stared at the ceiling. That's what I was afraid of. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Rachel said, "Have you ever thought about if we weren't together anymore?" Eric didn't move. Sometimes. But I always figured that was normal. You don't. She didn't answer. The silence between them felt heavier than words. He turned his head to her. If there's someone else, I'd want to know. Her heart stopped. For a second she thought he knew. Really knew. There isn't, she whispered. Not like that. He didn't press. But he didn't believe her either. She could feel it. The first seeds of doubt had been planted. And once doubt takes root, it doesn't need much to grow. The next morning, Rachel couldn't stop shaking. She sat at the kitchen table while the kids got ready upstairs, her coffee untouched. Her phone buzzed again. Jason. We're running out of time to pretend this isn't real. She didn't reply. 'Cause he was right. Because she was standing on the edge of something irreversible. Because she didn't know which life was a lie anymore, and which one was actually hers. Chapter 6. The Fall. Rachel didn't plan to sleep with Jason. That's what she told herself in the shower that morning, washing her hair with the same coconut-scented shampoo she always used, standing under the hot spray longer than usual. She wasn't dressing up for him. She wasn't doing her makeup for anyone. She wasn't planning anything. But her hands still lingered a little longer on the eyeliner. Her hair still dried perfectly that day. Her jeans still hugged her hips just right, and her favorite black sweater, the one that fit too well to wear around the house, somehow made its way onto her body. She told herself it was for her. Not for him. Not for anyone. She parked 2 blocks away from the place Jason had rented for the week, a short-term apartment near a college campus, furnished, forgettable, the kind of place where nobody asked questions. The kind of place made for transients. When he opened the door, he didn't smile. He just looked at her, eyes dark and tired. His jaw set like he knew what was going to happen and hated it as much as he needed it. "Hi," she said. He stepped aside. She walked in. The apartment was quiet. Bare walls, a couch that looked like it belonged in a dentist's waiting room, a kitchen counter with 2 mugs and a bottle of wine. Jason closed the door. "You don't have to be here." Rachel turned. "But I am." There were no grand speeches. No romantic music. No sweeping declarations. He kissed her slowly, like he'd been holding his breath since the last time they touched. And this time she didn't stop him. She didn't hesitate. She kissed him back, her hands in his hair. His body pulling hers close, the weight of months of wanting crashing down all at once. They made it to the bedroom without saying a word. And when it was over, Rachel lay still beneath the thin white sheet, staring at the popcorn ceiling while Jason breathed beside her, his hand resting softly against her thigh like he was afraid to let go. It hadn't been perfect. It hadn't been fireworks. It had been real, tangled, quiet, intimate. And as much as she wanted to feel euphoric, what she felt was hollow. Not regret. Not yet. Just a sinking awareness that something inside her had changed. Jason traced his fingers along her spine. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't know what okay feels like anymore," she said. He nodded. "Me neither." They lay there for a while, not speaking, just breathing. Rachel sat up eventually, pulled her sweater back over her shoulders. "I need to go. The kids get out at 3. Jason sat up too. "What happens now?" She stared at the floor. "I don't know." He touched her hand. "Do you want me to stop texting you?" "I don't know that either," she said, and walked out before she could change her mind. Home, everything looked exactly the same. The pumpkin decorations were still up. The kids' school papers were still magnet to the fridge. Eric was in the garage fixing a broken lawn chair. Lucas ran up and hugged her legs when she came in, babbling about a dinosaur he made out of paper. Normal. So painfully normal. She kissed his forehead and forced a smile. "That's amazing, buddy." Later that night, Eric came to bed after she did. She was pretending to sleep, curled on her side, heart beating like it might betray her. He slid into bed behind her and wrapped an arm around her waist. His voice was soft. "I miss you." She lay there frozen. He kissed her shoulder. "I don't know what I did, but I miss us." Rachel felt her eyes sting, but she didn't let the tears fall. She didn't deserve to cry. "I'm just tired," she whispered. Eric squeezed her gently. "I'm here." And somehow that made it worse. The days that followed blurred together. She didn't see Jason again that week. She told him she needed space. He said he understood, but the silence between them felt heavier now, like it carried weight instead of relief. At home, she moved through routines like she was inside someone else's body. She helped with homework. She folded laundry. She made tacos and laughed at Lucas's jokes and held Ella's hand in the carpool line. But at night, in the quiet, she couldn't escape what she'd done. One evening, she caught herself staring at Eric while he helped Ella with a math worksheet. The soft way he explained fractions. The calm patience in his voice. The way he ruffled her hair and said, "You're getting it. I'm proud of you." Rachel blinked back a sudden swell of emotion. This man, this flawed, distracted, kind, gentle man. He didn't deserve this. And the truth was beginning to eat her alive. She woke up at 3:12 a.m. 2 days later, heart racing, drenched in sweat. She sat on the bathroom floor with her knees to her chest and whispered into the silence. "What am I doing? What am I doing?" There was no answer. Just her reflection in the dark mirror. Just her husband's steady breathing down the hall. The next morning, while packing Ella's lunch, she paused mid-slice with a butter knife in hand and said out loud, "I can't do this anymore." Eric walked in at that exact moment, coffee in hand. "Do what?" She froze. The peanut butter on the knife started to drip. "Nothing," she said. "Just talking to myself." He raised an eyebrow but let it go. "You're doing that more lately." "Yeah," she muttered. "I know." That afternoon, she sat in her car with the engine off outside the grocery store. Her phone buzzed again. "Jason. I miss you. I know things are hard. I'm here when you're ready." Rachel stared at the screen for a long time. Then typed, "I made a mistake." She didn't send it. Not yet. But she didn't delete it either. Chapter 7. The silence between them. Rachel had lived with secrets before. White lies, things half said, truths adjusted for convenience. But this wasn't silence. This was a scream she kept buried in her throat. She could feel it in every breath. In every moment Eric's eyes lingered too long or didn't linger at all. And he was looking at her differently. Started small. Pause when she spoke. A longer glance when she came home from running errands. A second or two longer staring at her phone when she set it face down on the table. Then came the first real moment she knew he knew something. It was a Thursday night. Rain tapping the windows. The kids were in the living room watching cartoons, and she was folding towels at the kitchen counter when Eric asked casually, "Who's Jason?" Rachel's hands stopped mid-fold. Her heart slammed against her chest so hard it made her dizzy. "What? Jason?" he repeated calmly, as if asking about a new neighbor. "You got a text from someone named Jason the other day. It popped up on your screen when your phone was on the charger." She turned slowly, towel clutched in her hands. "He's someone I knew from college. He was in town a few weeks ago. We grabbed coffee." Eric nodded, looking at her like he was reading past her skin. "Coffee?" "Yeah," she said, forcing her voice to stay light. "That's all." He nodded again. Smile. But it wasn't a real smile. "Okay." That was it. He didn't yell. Didn't accuse. Didn't press. But from that day on, the house felt colder. He stopped making small talk. He stopped reaching for her hand at night. He still kissed her goodbye in the mornings, but it was more habit than affection. Like a clock chiming on the hour, mechanical and precise. She thought about telling him the truth, blurting it out in the middle of dinner, saying, "Yes, I kissed him, yes, we slept together, yes, I betrayed you, but it wasn't because I wanted to hurt you, it was because I forgot what it felt like to be alive." But the words caught in her throat and died every time. Then came the second clue. Eric's birthday dinner. They sat in the dim booth of the steakhouse he'd suggested. Just the two of them, candlelight flickering between them. It should have felt romantic. Restorative. Chance to reset. But Rachel couldn't eat. She picked at her food, smiled when she needed to, laughed when it seemed appropriate. But something felt off. Halfway through dessert, Eric set down his fork and looked her in the eyes. "If there's something you need to say, this would be a good time." Rachel blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean," he said softly, "I'm not stupid. I know when something's wrong. I know when you're not here, even when you're sitting right in front of me." She opened her mouth, closed it. Her hands shook. He leaned forward, voice lower now. "Just tell me if there's someone else. I'd rather hear it from you than figure it out piece by piece." She stared at him and lied. "No, there's no one else." He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." They finished dessert in silence. At home, she showered with the door locked. Sat on the bathroom floor again, this time with the water running just to drown out her thoughts. She held her phone in her hand for over an hour. Jason hadn't texted since she told him she needed space. The silence between them now felt sharper, more final. She typed again. "I can't do this anymore. I told him there was no one else. And I don't know if I did it to protect him, or to protect myself." She hovered over the send button. Didn't press it. Didn't delete it either. Just watched her reflection in the dark screen. She looked tired. Older. Less sure of anything. The woman staring back wasn't a villain. She was just lost. The next day, Eric got up early and didn't wake her. When she came down, he'd already taken the kids to school. A note sat on the kitchen counter. "Didn't want to wake you. Took the kids to give you some quiet. Hope it helps. E." She held the note like it was radioactive. Because this was the worst part. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't throwing accusations. He was trying. And that made her feel even more like the bad guy. She stood in the kitchen for a long time. Then walked upstairs. Opened her closet. She pulled out a box of old journals, ones she hadn't touched in years. She flipped through the pages, scanning entries from when she and Eric were still dating, still newly married, still building the life that now felt so distant. One entry caught her eye. It was dated the day after their honeymoon. The ink was slightly smudged. "I don't know what the future will look like, but I trust him. Feel safe with him. That has to count for something, right?" Rachel closed the journal slowly and cried. Big, body-shaking sobs that came from a place she'd ignored for months. Because she did trust him. She had felt safe. And somehow, that had faded into a numbness she couldn't explain. But now she had to choose. Not between two men, but between truth and lies. Between staying in the shadows or dragging everything into the light, no matter how much it hurt. Chapter 8. The Breaking Hour. The following Monday started like any other. Rachel packed the kids' lunches with mechanical precision. Grape jelly sandwiches, carrot sticks, alphabet cookies. Ella complained about her socks. Lucas couldn't find his shoe. Max barked at the delivery truck like it had insulted his ancestors. Eric moved through the morning with forced calm, the same way someone walks through a minefield, aware that one wrong step could blow everything wide open. They said their goodbyes at the door. Eric kissed her cheek, the briefest brush of skin. The kids yelled, "Love you," and tumbled down the porch steps. Then it was quiet again. Too quiet. Rachel stood in the kitchen after they left, mug in hand, the coffee inside it cold. Something inside her was shifting. Not in a dramatic, epiphanic way, but slowly like a tectonic plate grinding beneath the surface. By noon, she was driving toward Jason's apartment. Not because she wanted to see him, but because she needed to end it. For real. No maybe. No open endings. Park. Walked up to the door. Knock once. Jason opened it with that familiar, exhausted look. Relief in his eyes, but resignation too. "You came," he said softly. Rachel nodded. "I shouldn't be here." He stepped back, let her in. "I know." They stood in the living room like strangers. A single lamp was on, casting pale yellow light across the couch. His phone buzzed on the table. Neither of them reached for it. Rachel sat down slowly, clutching her hands in her lap. "I can't keep doing this," she said. Jason sat across from her. "I figured. I thought I could live two lives. Keep one safe and one secret. But they're bleeding into each other, and I'm suffocating." He didn't speak. "I'm sorry," she said. "Not because you deserve better, though maybe you do, but because I've been selfish. I've been using this, us, as a way to avoid fixing what's broken." "You're not the only one," he said quietly. Rachel looked up. "What?" Jason leaned back, eyes tired. "I liked the idea of you. The one who saw me, listened to me. But this, whatever this has been, it's not real. Not really. Not when we've had to hide it like a secret we're ashamed of." She nodded slowly. "I think I needed to feel like someone still saw me." "I did," he said. "But I was looking at the version of you that didn't exist anymore." That stung. Not because it was cruel, but because it was true. She stood. "I need to go. I need to be home when Eric gets back." Jason didn't try to stop her. He just stood with her. Quiet. Steady. At the door she turned. "I won't text you again." "I know." Then she left. And with every step down the hall, it felt like a piece of her was being scraped clean. Eric came home early that day. Rachel was in the living room, pretending to read. The book sat open on her lap, but she hadn't turned a page in half an hour. He walked in, set his keys down, stood in the entryway like he was still deciding whether or not to speak. "I called your mom," he said finally. "Asked her to take the kids for the night." Rachel's heart dropped. "Why?" He walked in slowly, sat on the arm of the couch. "Because I want to talk. And I don't want to do it while Ella's asking for fruit snacks or Lucas is building a Lego spaceship." Rachel closed the book. "Okay." He looked at her. Really looked. "You lied to me," he said. She didn't deny it. "I saw your texts. The ones you deleted, the ones you missed." Rachel's breath caught. "I didn't want to check your phone," he went on. "I really didn't. But I knew. I knew something was wrong and I couldn't keep pretending." "I was going to tell you," she whispered. "When?" he asked. "After the holidays." After another lie. Rachel closed her eyes. "I'm sorry. That doesn't undo it." "I know." Silence. Then gently he asked, "Was it just once?" She shook her head. "More than once." "Yes." "Did you love him?" She opened her eyes. Met his. "I don't think I loved him. I think I loved being seen." Eric stood, walked across the room like he needed motion to keep from collapsing. "Why didn't you talk to me, Rachel? Why didn't you just tell me?" "I tried," she said, tears beginning to build. "You were always working, always tired. And I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know what was wrong with me." He turned. His voice cracked. "You were everything to me. I built this life around you. Around us." "I know," she whispered. "That's what makes this so horrible." He paced again, then stopped. Looked at her like she was someone he used to know. "Do you want to fix this?" Rachel's throat closed. "I don't know how. That's not what I asked." Then. "Yes." He exhaled, ran a hand through his hair. "I don't know if I can forgive you. Not today. Maybe not ever. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to make it right." Eric sat again. Not close, but not far. They didn't speak for a long time. Just sat there. Two people who had built a life together now sitting in its wreckage, unsure what could be salvaged. But neither walked away. Not yet. Chapter 9. The Spaces Between Us. Eric didn't leave. Not that night, not the next day. Not even after the full weight of Rachel's betrayal finally hung between them without disguise. But he didn't stay the same either. Something in him had shifted, calcified, like a man who'd walked barefoot across a burning road and hadn't realized how bad the damage was until after he made it to the other side. Rachel slept in the guest room now. It wasn't a conversation. There were no shouted demands or slammed doors. After their talk, Eric simply stood up, walked upstairs, stripped the bed in the guest room and made it. Rachel followed and said nothing. That night, when he brushed past her in the hallway, their shoulders touched for the first time in hours, and it felt like static, like a shock from a world that used to be warm. In the mornings they moved like co-workers. Not enemies. Not yet. Just people who used to be something more. They passed coffee mugs and car keys like they were signing a silent treaty. She packed the kids' lunches. He checked the oil in her car. They didn't fight. But the silence between them had a temperature now. Cold, sterile, just slightly below human. Kids noticed. Ella asked first, sitting cross-legged on the couch with a popsicle in hand. "Why aren't you sleeping with Dad?" Rachel froze. The answer she'd rehearsed felt suddenly childish. "I've just been having trouble sleeping. It's quieter in the guest room." Ella wrinkled her nose. "Are you mad at each other?" Rachel forced a smile. "No. We're just working through some grown-up stuff." Lucas didn't ask anything. But he started crawling into bed with her in the middle of the night, curling up beside her without a word. Eric noticed. He said nothing. But that silence was beginning to scream. 2 weeks passed before the word therapy was mentioned. Came from Eric, not Rachel. He slid a sticky note across the kitchen table one Saturday morning, the names of 3 therapists scrawled in his unmistakable blocky handwriting. "I don't know if this fixes anything," he said, "but I don't want to just sit in this forever. I need a place to be angry that isn't our living room." Rachel stared at the list. "I'll call." He nodded. That afternoon she did. They began with separate sessions. Rachel sat across from a woman named Dana, who wore oversized glasses and had the kind of voice that made even your ugliest truths sound like puzzle pieces instead of indictments. Rachel spoke haltingly at first, like she was still convincing herself this was her life and not someone else's. She told Dana about Jason, about the way it started, the things that weren't said at home, the slow erosion of identity, the hunger that wasn't just about sex, but about being seen. Dana listened, then asked a question Rachel wasn't ready for. "Do you regret it?" Rachel hesitated. "I regret hurting Eric. I regret lying. I regret that my kids are going to remember this version of us." "But do you regret Jason?" Rachel looked at the floor. "No. I regret that it had to be him. But not what he reminded me of." "And what was that?" Rachel swallowed. "That I used to want things." Eric's sessions were separate. He didn't tell Rachel much about them. But he started staying at the office later. Working out again. sleeping with headphones in. They began couples therapy 3 weeks later. The first session, they sat on opposite ends of a beige couch, elbows in their own airspace. The therapist, an older man named Leonard with a calm, gravelly voice, asked them to name one thing they still liked about each other. Rachel said, "He's kind to the kids." Eric said, "She's always taken care of the people around her." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't tender. But it was honest. And that was the first honest thing they'd said to each other in a long time. The hard part wasn't the truth. The hard part was how slow it was to stitch over the wound. And how little progress looked like anything at all. Rachel would clean the kitchen while Eric silently took out the trash, and something in her wanted to shout, "Look, we're working." But then he'd leave his wedding ring on the bathroom counter again, and it would feel like a slap. One night, while folding laundry, Eric spoke without looking up. "Were you in love with him?" Rachel stared at a pair of Lucas's socks. "No." He nodded. "Was he in love with you?" She didn't answer right away. "I think he wanted to be." Another silence. Then he said, "I hope you told him goodbye." "I did," she whispered. "Good," Eric said. "Because I don't think I could try at this if he was still waiting in the wings." That night, he didn't put his headphones in when they went to bed. He didn't sleep beside her. But he left the door cracked between the rooms. That was something. A month after the confession, they sat down with the kids and told them, in a way that didn't use words like affair or cheating or separation, that things were hard right now. That sometimes grown-ups get lost and try to find their way back. That love doesn't disappear. But sometimes it needs to be rewound and replayed before it feels right again. Ella cried. Lucas asked if they were getting divorced. "No," Eric said. "We're trying not to." And in that moment Rachel saw him, really saw him. Not just the man she married. But the man who still hadn't given up. They weren't healed. Far from it. But they were still trying. And in a world full of people who walk away, who ghost, who rewrite the story to fit their guilt, that had to count for something. Didn't it? Chapter 10: The Road Back. The year turned. Fall became winter. Then winter stumbled into spring. The house remained the same. Same peeling porch paint, same fridge humming late at night, same drawings by the kids taped up on the wall beside the microwave. But inside something had shifted. Not loudly. Not all at once. But enough. There were still bad days. Rachel still had moments when shame curled around her ribs like a snake and whispered, "You're not worth forgiving." Eric still woke some mornings with a weight in his chest, so heavy he had to sit on the edge of the bed for 5 full minutes before standing. But the silence wasn't weaponized anymore. It wasn't used to punish. It had become a shared space. A place where both of them could breathe without pretending they had the answers. Somewhere along the way, Rachel moved back into their bedroom. It wasn't ceremonial. There was no speech, no discussion. One night, after tucking in Lucas and switching off the hallway light, she simply didn't turn toward the guest room. She walked into their room, pulled back the covers, and slid into bed beside him. Eric didn't say anything. But he turned slightly in the dark, just enough that their knees brushed beneath the sheets. They lay like that, close but not touching. The next night, he reached for her hand. And she didn't pull away. Therapy continued. Every Wednesday at 5:30. Some sessions were quiet. Some were full of jagged questions that left them raw and hollowed. There were days Eric asked the same things again and again. Why him? When did it start? What were you looking for that I wasn't giving? Rachel answered each time, sometimes with words that didn't come easy, sometimes with tears. But she never dodged. The difference now was simple. She was no longer hiding. At school, Ella had a group project about family history. One afternoon, she asked Rachel to help her fill out a worksheet. "Describe your parents," it read. Rachel hesitated. "What do you want to say?" Ella thought for a minute. "You and Dad. You don't laugh as much as you used to. But you're together." Rachel smiled softly. "Is that a good thing?" "I think so," Ella said. "You're trying. That's better than pretending." Rachel blinked back tears. That night, she told Eric what Ella had said. He didn't laugh. He just nodded, a strange smile flickering at the corners of his mouth. Smart kid. Smarter than us, Rachel said. Eric looked at her. His eyes quieter than they used to be. She's watching us. I know. So let's make sure what she sees is real. Even if it's not perfect. Jason didn't text again. Eventually, his number disappeared from her contacts. Rachel deleted the thread. Deleted the photos. The memory didn't vanish. But it lost its power. It became something she could look at with distance. Not pride. Not longing. Just a fact of what had happened. A chapter in a book she'd almost thrown away, but chose to keep reading. Not for the ending, but for what came after. One morning in early May, Rachel woke before everyone else. The house was still. Birds outside the window. The scent of rain on the driveway. She pulled on a sweater, crept downstairs, poured herself a cup of coffee. She sat at the kitchen table and stared out the window, remembering how lonely this room had once felt. Remembering the weight of lies, the ache of wanting out. And now there was space. Not for forgetting, not even for full forgiveness, but for grace. Eric came downstairs a little later. Hair messy, t-shirt wrinkled. He poured his coffee. Sat beside her. Morning, he said, voice low. Morning. Oz. Then softly. Do you regret staying? He looked at her, long and quiet. No, he said. She nodded. Do you? He asked. Rachel looked at her coffee. At the trees outside, the sound of the wind. No, she said. Not anymore. They sat like that. Two people who had broken and stayed. Two people who were rebuilding not what they once had but something new. Something slower. More fragile. But maybe stronger because of that. There was no neat bow. No closing credits. Just a quiet moment. And the knowledge that they were still here. Still trying. And sometimes that was enough.